What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for January 26, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Friday edition of the podcast. Feel Good Friday, a non-football Friday. Got to get used to these now until next year, but more on the Eagles in a little bit. Before we get into today's episode, a couple of housekeeping notes. First and foremost, thank you. We went over 3,000 streams yesterday on Spotify. It's the quickest 1,000th milestone we've made. I guess 0 to 1,000 was the longest, but it didn't really take long to go from 2,000 to 3,000. So thank you. I truly, truly appreciate it. Like I said, this has been a steady process. I have some big lofty goals for this year, but it's nothing without you. So thank you for all of your support. Support me even more. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's hit that milestone. Let's get 100 subscribers to the YouTube channel and open up even more doors. Jimbo_Mont. Go to the YouTube channel, even if you're listening on the podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Spread the word. Let's help grow this thing. And again, the bigger it grows, the more things I have planned moving forward. But thank you so much. I appreciate all of your loyal support over the past year and a half or so for 3,000 streams. Let's make it 6,000. Let's go. Take it to the top. And as always, one of the things I try to pride myself on is coming at you with correct information and accurate information. And yesterday when we were talking about Pete Rose, the Phillies made him the highest paid player temporarily. He was the highest paid player for the entire 1979 season until Nolan Ryan signed a free agent deal after the California Angels let him go. He signed a 4-year, $4.5 million contract with the Astros after the 79 season, becoming the highest paid player in all of sports, also becoming Major League Baseball's first $1 million player. And if I'm not mistaken, I think at the time baseball players were paid the highest, so he became the first person to make $1 million a year in professional sports. So Nolan Ryan, not Dave Winfield, it was Nolan Ryan who overtook Pete Rose as the highest paid athlete in 1979. All right, so let's start then with the question of the day recap as we always do, and everybody was all over the place. I said, how are you feeling after the press conference with Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman? And for the most part, the majority of everybody was in one of two, kind of in the wait and see, or want to see who the coordinators are first before we go. Had a couple people feeling good, a couple people feeling terrible, but for the most part, everybody was in that, let's see what happens. And all of this happened before Vic Fangio was officially named defensive coordinator, but more on him in a minute. But thank you as always for participating in the question of the day, 267-495-8531, or hit me up on the social media. It's always there too. Every day there's more and more people participating in this. So again, let's make this a thing. We're getting there. Like I have the more interaction, the more things like that, the more I can do. And again, I'm getting there with your support. So thank you. Don't forget, if you want to buy some Girl Scout cookies, don't go anywhere else. Buy them from Ella. Go follow the link in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this. That takes you right to the link where you can support Ella and her troop to go on their camping trip. Let's take down some soccer moms. You're going to buy Girl Scout cookies anyway. You might as well buy them from Ella and support me even that way too. And while you're buying Girl Scout cookies, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, rough day for our winter sports teams. Flyers lost 3-0 to Detroit, their fourth straight. They are looking forward to the All-Star break. They have one more game Saturday against Boston, and then they get a week off for the All-Star break. Much needed, I have to say. No real big updates on the situation with Hockey Canada and Carter Hart. But it does look like for the foreseeable future, Scott Ehrson is going to be our goalie moving forward. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. He's played well. So that's a good thing. But, man, when this team is very streaky, they go on runs. And when they don't go on runs, they go on losing streaks. And we're in the middle of one now. And looks like with Boston on the horizon, it's not looking good heading into the All-Star break. But hopefully that'll give us a clearer picture then on where this team is and what this team is going into the trade deadline. It wasn't much better for the Sixers. 134, 122. Joe did extend his 30-point streak to 22 games. Got a little bit of a scare when he bumped knees and was limping and fell to the ground. Seemed like he was okay, kind of played. Nobody played in the fourth quarter. They were shorthanded. Tobias was sick, but it just was a sloppy game from the start, and they just never recovered. I mean, they battled well to keep it. At one point, they were down 12, I think, at halftime, but it just was. I mean, they couldn't close it. Every time they go on a run, Indiana would make a big shot. I think the biggest takeaway from this, and it could mean nothing, but Indiana now has the playoff tiebreaker over the Sixers, and with the way the East has been shuffling in the past couple weeks, that could mean something. So it's worth monitoring and keeping an eye on that. They're off today. They're in Denver tomorrow. Well, they're in Denver now, but they play the Nuggets and then that big anticipated rematch. Hopefully Joe's knee holds up, but looking forward to that game tomorrow. Do have some Phillies news. Oh, by the way, congrats on Joe for being named an All-Star starter for the 7th straight year. And I did see that he moved past Wilt and now is only behind Dr. J, I think Chet Lemon, and Iverson as the only players to start more All-Star games than Joe, which, barring a disaster, he should be able to kind of knock some people off of that list. Maybe Barkley was in there too. I'll have to look at that. I thought I was going to remember it, but I didn't. So I'll update that because, again, being accurate is very, very important to me. Some Phillies news. Rob Thomson don't know who did the interview, but said, we're looking to win the division. And I like his quote and his rationale behind it. He said, I don't want people to think, and players wouldn't think this, but that it's okay to win the division or to win the wild card. And ultimately went on this little rant where just because the division winners have been getting knocked out by the wild card, you start playing for the wild card and not to win the division, he said, you're going to end up missing the playoffs completely. So they're looking to win the division and kind of change that narrative. I do think that narrative at some point it'll change, but I like where he goes with that. And last time somebody said about winning a division, you know what happened, and the Phils went on that run with the golden era of Philly baseball with J-Roll and all those guys. And it was J-Roll who said it. Update on the Hall of Fame stuff. I got a couple things to say about that. One, Larry Bowa kind of went on a rant, and he was right, saying about how it's just basically a disgrace that J-Roll is not getting more consideration for Hall of Fame than what he is. And I totally agree. The fact that Chase Utley got more votes than him, nobody's still been able to explain. I'm getting a lot of people commenting on the Hall of Fame stuff we've been talking about, people saying that we get caught up in our emotions, which I do think we do. And I think that's why Chase Utley is getting so much love. But Jimmy Rollins, the numbers support it. He should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, other than Derek Jeter, nobody during his time frame was a more consistent shortstop than Jimmy Rollins. I mean, you had guys that came and went, and I talked about this on the other podcast when I was doing Back to the Future, that, I mean, you had guys come in, come out, and have good years, but Jimmy Rollins sustained it consistently. So the fact that Chase Utley is getting more votes than him, and I did have somebody call me out on my love for Bobby Abreu, and don't get it twisted, I'm not a huge Bobby Abreu fan, but the numbers support that he has a case to be in the Hall of Fame. The numbers are there. I think his issue is he's in a logjam. He played in an era when there was a lot of good outfielders. But I'm not saying Bobby Abreu should be a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying the case could be made. I am going to go on record and say Bobby Abreu's case for the Hall of Fame is better than Chase Utley's. And now, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting mad that people have me, talking shit on Chase Utley, who I loved as a player. I keep saying I'll have to show it to you because I've told you enough. It's in the closet. But he's not a Hall of Famer. And I don't know who needs to hear this or if this is, triggering some people. I'm sorry. Chase Utley is not a Hall of Famer. Bobby Abreu is more of a Hall of Famer than Chase Utley. And I'm not convinced Bobby Abreu should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he should be. Jimmy Rollins, Absolutely. It is an absolute travesty that Chase Utley is getting more votes than Jimmy Rollins. And until somebody can nobody's been able to prove me the case. Everybody keeps talking about emotion, and that's why this player gets love and this player and this guy did this, and that's fine. But explain to me, someone, 267-495-8531, explain to me the case. And if you don't want to call and leave a text message, hit me up on social media, Twitter, Jimbo_Mont, Instagram, at Philly Jimbo. Let me know, because I'm not seeing it. And Bobby Abreu has a better case than Chase Utley. But pretty soon, the Phillies are going to be back. Pitchers and catchers in a couple weeks. Rob Thomson is already saying they're looking to win the division. And all you got to do is believe, and it's going to happen. Go to Philly Goat, get your Believe shirt. Show that you believe in this Phillies team. And I'm telling you, the cool thing about the Believe shirts on Philly Goat is they can double as Sixers shirts. So go check out phillygoat.com. Get your Believe shirt. If you want, you can cut the sleeves out and get jacked like Johan Rojas. I might do it. I've been hitting the gym, down like 11 pounds in January from not drinking. So, hey, maybe I'll start cutting my sleeves out and get jacked like Johan. But go get your Believe shirt at phillygoat.com, and you want to pair it with something. And this is me. I'm not a fashionista by any stretch, but get a pair of the Schmitties, and it'll go very well with that Believe shirt when you're walking down the boardwalk this summer. So go to phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. Believe that the Phillies are going to win the division. Believe that this year is going to be different and the streak will end where the division winners get knocked out. Believe, and then match it up with the Schmitties. 10% off, phillygoat.com. Do it, and do it now. All right, Eagles news. I mentioned Vic Fangio was named defensive coordinator, and honestly, I love this move. And I love it for a couple reasons. One, his primary focus is on pass rush and good safety play. And what did we really suffer with last year? We didn't get a good, solid pass rush, and our safeties did not play well. Granted, they were banged up. Avante was out for a good portion of the season. The whole entire secondary was just a joke last year. But Avante was out. You had Reed Blankenship, who battled injuries a lot. You had Sidney Brown, who didn't get on the field, but when he did. So I'd like that Sidney Brown plays like his hair is on fire, and he needs to be reined in, and that was his thing in college. And now you have a coach that prioritizes safeties. I like where that's going. You have some good things in the secondary. I think this is a good move for the Eagles. He was an advisor, and everybody who's saying, oh, well, I don't know if I like it. He was the advisor, and he was a very, very influential in Gannon's defense the year they went to the Super Bowl. I still say he would have been named the defensive coordinator this year, but Gannon completely screwed him over. The douchebag. I cannot stand Jonathan Gannon. Sorry. I'm still bitter about that, the way that whole thing played out, because now we suffered through a defense that you saw what it was last year, and it could have been more of okay, status quo, keep things kind of similar. Because Fangio had a big say in that defense, but Jonathan Gannon, the weasel that he is, screwed him over, and he went to Miami, which it didn't really work out in Miami. Not so much because of Vic Fangio. It's just they had a ton of injuries this year, and for what he was able to do with all the injuries they had, I did see some reports that people were glad, but somebody's got to be the scapegoat there. But that wasn't on Vic Fangio. They had a ton of injuries, and they didn't beat anybody good. That, again, isn't so much on Vic Fangio as much as the offense, too. They lost to the Eagles. The offense didn't really do much against the Eagles' defense when they played that game. So, you have that. But I like it. He brings in experience, 36 years of NFL experience. I do think that he needs to bring in some young assistants to help him out, to really kind of, because the knock against him is that he's out of touch, but I think he knows what he needs to do. So if he can surround himself with some young, bright minds that can help bridge some of that gap, I mean, like I said, similar to what happened. Like he was kind of, I don't want to say he was the architect, but he was the guy that was in Gannon's ear, giving him a lot of advice on that. So with him being in charge, he needs to get Gannon-like guys that are going to be able to relate to the players. And I think because of the sense of urgency that this team has, I think they're going to help him, surround him with that. I know Sirianni is a big fan of his, so I think that helps too. But I like it. I think you're going to see kind of a return to where we were at 2 years ago with a solid pass rush. Hopefully he's going to be able to maximize Hassan Reddick now. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with Sidney Brown, who, I mean, has all the potential in the world. You just need to rein it in. So Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator is okay by me. I'm anxious to see now the next move is the offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore was in yesterday for an interview, and he worked with Dak as well as Justin Herbert and didn't do too bad. So before anybody jumps on look at Dak, he was there when I think 99, so he was there before, or 19 to 2022. He was there before Mike McCarthy. McCarthy kept him on. Dak played well. I mean, the one season he got hurt last year, I mean, he threw a lot of interceptions, but again, I don't know how much of that is on the coordinator himself as much as the player. But I will say Dak had some good years. Justin Herbert was playing good until he got hurt last year. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. The one criticism with Kellen Moore is the fact that he doesn't kind of use the quarterback's mobility, doesn't maximize it, I guess. But, I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts versus Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts is a completely different beast than that. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they're doing their due diligence. It's just interesting that they interviewed him right after the announcement that Jim Harbaugh was going to San Diego, to the Clippers, to the Chargers. Feel like they're the same franchise, just different sport. But once he decided he was going to the Chargers, the Eagles brought him in. So there definitely must be some interest there, and maybe Kellen Moore sees the writing on the wall that he's not going to be there. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with that. He has experience. He has done some good things. The question is, what's he going to be able to do with Hurts? So, again, we'll see about that. Jalen Carter was a Defensive Rookie of the Year finalist. No big surprise there. I have a ticket for him early. I got it, so I got some decent money on it to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, so hopefully that cashes. And finally, the last thing I want to say about the media in Philly, because I feel like it's turning into a shtick, and I don't want it to be, but it just blows my mind. And then people like eat this up like sheep, man. So listen to the midday show yesterday, and they were bitching about Nick Sirianni's lack of answers on how he was going to fix Jalen Hurts. So first of all, I got a couple issues with that. First of all, why are you pissed about that? One, maybe he hasn't sat down. It's only been like less than 2 weeks. Maybe he hasn't sat down and really analyzed it. He doesn't have an offensive coordinator to kind of bounce some things. So maybe he's working on some things but wants to see with the offensive coordinator. One. Two, like, are you for real? Like, yeah, let me sit here in a press conference because you asked the question, Philadelphia media. Let me tell you what my plan is so defenses know what we're working on with Jalen Hurts and can accentuate. Yeah, they can see some of the weaknesses and deficiencies he has on film. But, yeah, let me just sit here and just blab it for everybody here. Like, I feel like they don't stop and think. And I like listening to the midday show on WIP. But, man, come on, Joe. Like, this is what you're bitching about? Like, I get some people don't like Sirianni, but if that is what you're basing, like, stop. And the fact that callers are calling in and be like, yeah, F that guy. But, like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You want him to sit up there and tell you what our plan for next year is going to be? No. Like, and again, and I've said this before, and this is where I'm going to end it. I really don't feel that they owe us anything. Like, I work in education. I owe parents explanation when it comes to things that are happening in the school. My wife's a nurse, doctors. They owe people explanations about what's going on. our athletes, our coaches, it's entertainment. Like, do you go and ask your favorite actor, like, well, I know you couldn't get the line right in this scene. What was going through your mind? No. You just sit back and enjoy it. It's entertainment. So they don't owe us nothing. And truthfully, it's just idiotic to expect the coach to tell you what his plan is moving forward. Like, it's just dumb. Come on, Philadelphia media. You're better than that. But then again, maybe you're not. But be better. Like, come on. Like, take a deep breath. Stop. Just stop. As the Michael Jordan thing for drugs. Just stop it. Please, just stop. And that's all I got to say about that for today. But our question of the day, we talked about the offensive coordinator. And what is the offensive coordinators? What should be their primary focus? Is it fixing Jalen? Is it bringing in and differentiating and mixing up the scheme a little bit? Is it improving the red zone offense, which was a key thing that really held them back this year? Or is it just bringing consistency to the play calling? Let me know. Maybe it's something else. 267-495-8531. Anywhere on social media. Let me know. What should the offensive coordinator's top priority be? Fixing Jalen, getting a different scheme in there, mixing it up, red zone effectiveness, or consistency with the play calling. Let me know what you think. 267-495-8531. And while you're at it, let me know who you think they should hire as the offensive coordinator. Let me know what you think about Philly media. And somebody, please, explain to me the Chase Utley thing. While you're at it, check out my buddies over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. They're doing a great job even through the playoffs. The fact that there's no NFC East teams. Check them out wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. All right, today we're going to go back to 1975. And on this day, the first ever televised women's basketball game was played. Maybe. The facts on this are a little inconsistent, and I know, and you should know, somebody like me who's always trying to give you the facts, this is definitely giving me some gray hairs and causing me some indigestion here. But here we go anyway. Here's what we do know. It did happen in January of 1975. The game was played between the Immaculata Mighty Macs and the University of Maryland Terrapins women. It was played at the University of Maryland's Cole Fieldhouse down in College Park. This is where it gets a little out of everybody knows. Maryland, Wikipedia, and the Washington Post say it happened today, January 26, and Immaculata won the game 80-48. Immaculata, however, says the game happened, in fact, tomorrow, January 27th, and the score was 86-65. I'm going to side with University of Maryland, Wikipedia, and the Washington Post because that's three sources that are consistent. And again, because it was women's college basketball, trying to find out some of the facts are a little gray. But what we do know is the game between Maryland and Immaculata was the first ever televised women's basketball game in the history of the United States. Some interesting facts about it. Renee Portland said it was the first time that year was the first year they actually wore shorts. They had worn skirts up until that, and the referees still wore skirts during that game. Just a little FYI bonus here. Renee Portland was a Broomall native who coached at Penn State. Has some controversy in her career. Might get into a little bit of that next month in Women's History Month. But this game was shown on Ms. Lou television, the Ms. Lou television network, and it was broadcasted over 100 stations across the country. Immaculata did win. Their coach, Kathy Rush, was not happy, though. And she said, despite the fact that Immaculata's defense was outstanding. They forced 29 turnovers, but she said Immaculata, they played sloppy, and she was disappointed because when people see that or see us, they figure play like that. They figure that everybody else must be a lot worse than them because they were the team. They were 3-time defending national champions. So people really wanted to see it. And she said when Immaculata, who's the best team, plays sloppy, they just assume the rest of women's basketball is crap compared to that. And she even said, we represent all of women's basketball, not Immaculata. You got to love that. Because, I mean, they pretty much dominated, but she was more worried about growing the sport than anything. And I really got to respect that. But on this day, back in 1975, I think, the first ever women's televised women's college basketball or any women's basketball game was shown on American TVs between the Immaculata and University of Maryland. If it didn't happen today, it happened tomorrow. So we're right in the range. And again, it stresses me out to no end that we don't know for sure. But the Mighty Macs beat the Terrapins. They either beat them 80-48 or 86-65. Either way, Immaculata won. Kathy Rush wasn't happy. And the girls wore shorts instead of skirts. There you have it. All right, finally, our free agent who had a fresh start in Philly, Dave Poulin. And Dave Poulin was an undrafted free agent out of Notre Dame, signed with the Flyers in 1982, played in the minors, got called up at the end of the season, second to last, played in the last 2 games of the season. In his debut, scored 2 goals, and the rest, as they say, is history. At the end of the day, he played 8 years in Philly, 161 goals, 233 assists. He was the Flyers captain for 5.5 years. From 1984 to 1990, he took over for Bobby Clark, played in 2 Stanley Cup finals. He was an all-star in 86 and 88. He won the Selke Award, which is the best defensive forward in the game. Obviously made the most out of his opportunity. Undrafted free agent, one of the best Flyers to ever play. So Dave Poulin is today's free agent who had a fresh start in Philly. He definitely made the most out of his opportunity, becoming one of the best in the game, one of the few to be a Flyers captain, and played and took them to help take them to 2 Stanley Cup finals. Dave Poulin, our free agent who had a fresh start in Philly. On this day in 1975, Immaculata beat Maryland in the first ever televised women's basketball game in the history of the United States. Be sure to hit up the voice and text line 267-495-8531. Let me know what the offensive coordinator's top priority should be, fixing Jalen, bringing in a different scheme, red zone efficiency, or just consistency with the play calling. All of that could be tied together too. Let me know. Give me something on the Chase Utley thing. Let me know what you think about the media. Am I being too hard? Do the players and coaches owe us anything? Let me know. I say no. And come on, Philly media. Be better. Be better. Also, let me know what you think about Rob Thomson saying that the Phillies are going after the division. I like it. They're going to be aggressive. Let's do it. Thank you once again for 3,000 streams. Let's get to the next 3,000. Let's get the subscribers up over 100. Buy some Girl Scout cookies from Ella. Everything you need is in the description. Go have yourselves a Friday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I will see you when I see you.